I am Kayleigh. I'm a branding and website designer. I'm based in very unsunny Warsaw, deep in the Midlands. I've been helping small business owners kind of find their clarity and create connection between what they want to say and the way that their desired audience need to receive the message. Be yourself unapologetically, because chances are you may be inspiring someone else to be the same as well. And I think when you come as you are, people accept you for all of that. And some of those differences that you feel may rub someone up the wrong way, they may actually be the differences that someone chooses you for. Differences are interesting. Neatness it's gold, because I feel like we're going to end up in a very colourless world where, everything online feels like it's AI and you don't know if it's real or not.
It feels like we're living in a time where visibility is everything. Post more, say more, show up louder. But what we don't talk about is who visibility feels safe for and who learned early on to stay small. Because creativity doesn't exist in a vacuum, it's shaped by where we start, who we have access to, and the unspoken rules we expected to know before we even enter the room. In this episode, I'm joined by Kayleigh Hall, a branding and website designer who describes her work as a kind of creative clinic. Someone who blends intuition with strategy, art with psychology, and empathy with clarity. What really stands out about Kayleigh is how openly she talks about social mobility, class, and confidence, and how those things quietly shape the way creatives show up, price themselves, and believe they deserve to be seen. We talk about branding as more than aesthetics, about visibility as something emotional, and about what it means to build confidence, not by copying the system, but by designing your own way of belonging. If this episode resonates, follow, leave a review, or you can DM me over on Instagram at Creatively Eccentric. If you would love to be a guest and share your story, register to join the guest waitlist. You'll be the first to hear when applications reopen. The link to sign up will be in the show notes.
I feel very much like a renegade. I feel like I have maybe not grown up quite conventionally. I'm the grandchild of an immigrant, and my parents are the children of immigrants, so they're kind of second gen. And they went through their rebellion phase, and I feel like I'm the product of a bit of both. So we've got the immigrant mindset of work hard, do well, kind of blend in, don't draw attention to yourself. And then my parents, who are very much kind of activism, not intentionally, but they carry a bit of that energy where actually, question everything, stand up for yourself, have your voice, and make no apologies. So I'm a little bit of both. And I feel like that has led me to be a little bit, I'm happy to be quite rogue in my decision making. I'm happy to kind of take risks. I say risks, but careful, calculated risks. But I have the work hard, diligent mindset of my grandparents as well. So I have enjoyed having rules. So the school, the education system, university, I've enjoyed having those rules, those structures, and all of those things in place to kind of, the guardrails, I guess. But I've also kind of made my own decisions and kind of thought, I like maybe going into business, I don't have any experience of business, but I thought, well, I have a computer, I have my hands, I think I know what I'm doing, so I'm just gonna do it. So I feel like it's a bit of a blend of the two, and I definitely see how some of that decision making has led me to have a very messy, unorthodox, crazy journey. Probably very different to lots of others. It's not linear. It's kind of lots of squiggles along the way.
Let's go back slightly. What about your education? Was that a traditional education, or was it a bit like your career followed the untraditional path?
Bit of both. I'm very scholarly. As a child, I did very well. I was always in the top sets. Loved exams, loved homework. I would often ask for homework. And then very much, I was I can't ride a bike and I can't swim because I was indoors reading novels and drawing and writing stories and all of these kind of very academic things. So I did thrive, primary school, secondary school, absolutely loved all of that. And then I got to A levels and I didn't get any of the A levels I wanted to. So I did very well in my GCSEs. And then on the day when you receive your results is when you kind of tick to say, okay, these are the A levels that I want to sign up to. Now I have my grades. And on that day, I ticked design, art. I wanted to do psychology at that time, so I picked some sciences that related to that. And on the day I started sixth form, not a single option that I had chose was on my timetable. So I felt really displaced. I kind of left uh, sixth form just abruptly. I thought I'm really unhappy. I don't want to be here. This is not what I wanted to do. And I also felt like I wasn't thriving. I felt quite stunted because I wasn't enjoying the subjects that were chosen for me. So I guess that was me. That's a bit of that rebellion. It's kind of, well, I don't want to do this, so I'm not going to. So I left and I worked for a couple of years, which definitely is the start of that messy journey. Just to be in retail and completely unrelated to what I wanted to do. But actually, during that time, I fell in love with the POS. Like, you have to set up the displays, and when the campaigns would change, you've got to close the store for the evening, and you've got to kind of just transform the whole store to align with the new brand campaign. So I absolutely fell in love with that stage, and I knew actually I kind of reconnected with that creative part of me. So from there, I ended up going to college and I studied, I did a foundation year in art and design. And I did go there intending to do interior design. I thought I love whatever was happening to me creatively when I was doing those POS changes in the store. That's what I want to do more of. That creative eye, putting things in place, color schemes, all of that. I want to do that. But while on that foundation course at college, I kept playing with fonts and typography, and I didn't not it was very I was very unaware while doing that, so I wasn't aware that this was typography. I just knew that I loved letter forms. And I was recommended to just go for graphic design at uni. I think that's what you should study, Kayleigh. That was what my lecturer said. And I did. So I thought, oh, I don't know what it is, but I'll apply for it. He thinks I have an eye for it. Um, Absolutely blagged my interview research. I don't even know how I did my interview, and I just spent a couple hours researching what is graphic design. And back in that time, it was just Milton Glacier. I heart New York. The campaign. I think everyone does. Um, so I took that research, and that's what I talked about through my interview, and I got in, and that was my first choice. So university was fun. I absolutely adored that. Lots of creative space to just play, explore, and almost find myself. There was a lot of room for personal development, growth, and just kind of leading with passion, but also kind of commercializing the work that you are creating, kind of putting structure, analyzing, research, and just having some kind of clarity in the work that you're doing. So it is creative, it's very creative, but it also had a lot of that structure that I really, really enjoyed having. So it was kind of boundaried but unboundaried creativity, which I really, really, I definitely thrive in. Even now, the work that I do now, it's very much, I can be creative, but I also have a structure that I build during each project, and I've got like the guardrails again.
You sound like you've gained a lot of confidence. Did entering work early give you a different kind of, maybe a creative edge that other people wouldn't have had based on your journey and your path? Do you think that gave you an extra something?
I definitely think so. I feel like it's that boundaried part of the work. And there was also an understanding of the psychology behind the design decisions as well, because whenever, so I worked at Orange and they were quite innovative with their branding. And they had, I believe they worked with Mother, a large agency in London. They were quite a big deal. I feel like they still are, but they're a very large, multi-million, maybe billion by now pounds in agency. So having a little bit of that insight of why they were making those design decisions. And at the time I was there was quite a radical concept that came out, and it was they changed the tariffs, the mobile phone tariffs, to animals. So there was dolphin, there was gosh, I can't remember them all now. I think there was a bird, there was a dolphin, there was a raccoon. So we were helping customers rethink of the way that they use their, their phone habits. Their, do you call more? Are you more social? Are you a texter? And we were kind of almost analysing people's actual behaviour and then choosing a tariff based on that. And I think just seeing the design decision behind that, the psychology, the semiotics, all of the kind of science of design, that was what I was fascinated with. So whenever I did concepts at university, it was very much like, what is the human behavior? What is the emotion that's being evoked? Where is the connection being driven from? How are we kind of, connecting these points of emotion to a buying decision? And my work now it's absolutely rooted in that. It's like, what's the connection that we can make? What's the human emotion? How are we, making people feel something when they're looking at this design, or when they are looking at this website, or, how can we kind of bring the emotion to the forefront? So I feel like having that experience with Orange's campaigns and the innovation, it definitely helps me to lead with trying to think outside the box, but also always bringing it back to the client, the customer, the person.
Yeah. Yeah. You described your work as is it both art and science, and so how has combining these two these strengths help you build a sustainable creative career?
So I feel quite, I want to say commercial, but without the ick. So I am very much like, what is the goal? What are you trying to do in the business? I always start with gaining clarity. There is a lot of looking at the audience. So we're not just making a beautiful campaign, or it's not just aesthetically driven. So that's the alignment. I'm always trying to look for that as well, make sure there's some kind of alignment. The work is always going to be creative. That's the vehicles, that's the thing that I use to translate the scientific side. So the design science, it's all visual communication. So we're trying to find ways to kind of wrap up the psychology part and the human behavior and the thought process and all of the kind of the clarity groundwork, and then use design to wrap that up and create something visual, like a visual language, to communicate all of that groundwork that we've laid. So in doing that, it changes people's perspective of design from just something very aesthetic and beautiful and almost like something that they don't have to have. It's just something that if they've got the money for it, then they will kind of invest in it. It takes kind of that away, and it puts back, there's actual science behind it. There's a reason. There's a way to kind of help people make a buying decision about you. And I think rooted in the science makes it a lot more tangible. It kind of brings the value back into doing that work. So it's not just a vanity project. It's actually helping you bring the kind of people you want to attract. It helps you pique their interest. It helps you open the door for connection, and it helps you create better alignment. And you can't do that without looking at the scientific part, the symbiotics and the semiotics and all of these really technical things that we learn. But these are almost invisible mechanisms. They're not things that, if you don't know visual communication, you wouldn't know how to name it or to look out for it. It's like when you walk into a supermarket. I do this. I'm very guilty of this, and I know better, which is really bad. But I will see maybe like a mayonnaise brand, and it's very earthy, and it's got like an image of an egg. So I'm like, oh, that looks very organic. That looks very clean. That looks very like, there are not many fillers and all of these horrible chemicals and nasties. So that's the one that I'll choose. I don't think to look at the ingredients list all the time. That's not a habit that I'm not always doing that with every product I buy, because I haven't got that time. I'm just looking at, what are the signals it's showing me, and I will choose based off the signals. And that's kind of the invisible science part of the design that I definitely lead with. But an untrained person in business wouldn't necessarily know how to look for that, dress it up in design, and then lead with that. So that's how it's helped make my work sustainable, because it's something that it's a value that I can bring to people who haven't necessarily considered that before, or they may not know how to do it. They may want to do it, but don't know how.
Yeah, definitely. And for the untrained eye, I think there's so many different levels to branding, and strategy is just only a small part of that as well. And you add in that scientific part of it, it makes logical sense, really. You can't just have a pretty branding logo without the mechanics and the meaning behind it, and why people buy, etc. So yeah, that sounds like you've got something that other maybe designers don't necessarily consider. You design what you call a drop-in clinic. You help people to tackle design tasks in a day, from social, like websites, etc. As a professional to support creatives who haven't had that access to the resources or networks. How have you approached that in the drop-in clinic?
I always drive home the importance of starting with that clarity first. So the design drop-in clinic that I hold that back for clients that I've designed their branding or the website for. Those are my absolute yeses, because I know that we've already done that clarity work. There's no, the strategy's there, it's pinned down, it's clear. There's a clear route of, from the what do I want to say to how do I wrap it up in a way that people can receive it. That bit's kind of there. It's just implementing. The people who haven't had the opportunity to do that work, I will start with a little session where I do try to answer some of those questions that I would ordinarily already have in the kind of toolbox. So I'll ask them as much as I can to get that insight of their audience, what they are offering, what people need to know to choose them or to choose the offering. And then it's just about taking away all of the chaos and then kind of focusing on the one message and not lots of other things along the way. So I guess those people who haven't yet thought that far on how to kind of get their visual communication clear and concise, the design drop-in clinic, it just kind of helps them focus on the one thing for now. And then it will kind of plant that seed. If they haven't before seen the value of doing that deeper work, then it will plant the seed. So they'll be able to market this item that they, whatever the thing is they've brought to the clinic. If they've kind of asked me, I need some help with a media kit to kind of help me get more yeses for this service. I've got a PDF that I want to just send that isn't connected to my website because my website is embarrassing and I don't feel confident sharing that link. Then we'll put all of the energy into that thing they've brought into the clinic to get fixed here and now. But then at least they've now got on their radar the kind of things that they would need to think about when they go back and look at their larger work. How is their brand being presented? How is it representing their business? And where are the kind of the trouble areas that they need to go back and work on? I guess it's helpful for a starting point, but it is very much not to be used as a band-aid. It still kind of helps them to really go back to the root cause and figure out, well, actually, this is the work that I need to do. So it can work for now, but there is some more work that I need to do.
People do think that if you are trying to sort out your branding, etc., and your business, that because obviously we live in an AI society where everything seems to be a quick fix, like the idea of that clinic that you've created, where it's kind of like, this is just the beginning. You need to get this, get the bases sorted first, and then what do you do after the clinic? Do you go more deeper into building more of what you've discovered about them in the session?
It depends on where they are. If someone's applied to work with me in that way to have the design drop-in clinic, it's like a day where we kind of get through all of their design task list. So they may have like social media posts, they may have the media kit or some kind of sales PDF, they may have a website page to do. So it starts there. But if I feel like they have a large communication pitfall, there is kind of a big lack of clarity, then I won't go ahead with it. There is a qualifier for it, because I wouldn't want someone to invest in design drop-in clinic when actually I feel like the messaging still isn't clear enough to work. So I'm almost designing in vain. It's kind of vanity work, which that's not something that I align with. It's always got to, if I feel like it's not going to serve their business long term and it's not going to give them long term value, it doesn't really align with where I want to be or what I want to offer. I do want to be honest with people and say, actually, there are larger areas of communication that need some work. And I wouldn't feel good taking your money knowing that the issue's still going to be there. And the work that we do together in this drop-in clinic, it isn't going to convert for you. It's not a good investment. So I would never kind of do that work with that person if I know that it's still going to kind of leave them with a large sales issue afterwards. It doesn't feel right.
That's definitely a deeper insight of your business. How has your own starting point shaped the way you approach creativity in your business?
That's a really good question. So I have used creativity as escapism, but in terms of considering creativity as actual work and income was not even a notion at all. It was so foreign. I come from a lineage of, trying to think of the kind of work that my immigrant grandparents would have been doing. And it would definitely have been clerical. It would have been mechanical, work in a factory, or go get a job in the council, which would be considered a good job. To go and do, they would shoot for the stars and say, just go and do law, go and become a doctor. The things that you would typically translate with earning well or earning some kind of social status, or that's the work that's going to kind of get you out of the hardship that we've been born into or the circumstances that we've been born into. So those were the jobs mentioned to me when, my grandparents or my parents would talk about how well I would do at school as a result of exam results, things like that. And school in the 90s, we used to have these careers advisors who would come in and they would give you like these questionnaires, wouldn't they? You tick all these boxes and then it's almost like a personality test, almost like the 90s version of a disc test back then. And it would kind of tell you, you tick all of these boxes and, so I think you would be a really good lawyer, or I think you would be a really good, gosh, they would have things like a refuse worker, like the bin man. And so you're either really academic and doing, the classic lawyer, doctor, dentist, vet, or you end up receptionist, or I guess jobs that some people would think as menial. So there was never an in-between. There was no creativity, that would come back out of those tests. They were very quite, very old school, very, I guess, classic. I don't know a nice way to say it other than classic roles. So creative roles, copywriting and designing and interior work, all of these things weren't in the language back then. They were obviously jobs back then, but they felt like a privilege that I didn't have access to.
I think there's a lot of classism in that as well, regards to like
Absolutely.
working class, middle class type of roles, yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that's something I learned about maybe in the last kind of 5 to 6 years. I just wasn't ever aware of it. I live in a very working class town. The socioeconomics here is quite low. From street to street, you'll see poverty, and then you'll also see wealthy, large homes. I guess back in the day, there was a lot of, it was industrial, so we've got a lot of factories. But then, so you've got the streets that the factory owners would have typically lived on. Huge houses, big gardens, drives, all of that. And then you go down the road, a couple streets away, then you've got the terraced, the lower class, working class homes. I live in a terraced house now. I'm on a terraced street. It's very, very, very working class, very diverse, and often in diverse areas, the socioeconomics are statistically low. So my background has always been working class, lower class, on the red line. You do work for survival. Work equals earning money to survive, or work equals earning money just to, pay your bills and maybe have a little bit extra to do some fun stuff with. So having access to work that felt like you were able to chase a passion was not in my language at all. It was never something I could have considered until maybe I went to college and I saw more, like, my art lecturers were the first people I really knew that were using art as work, paid work. So it was maybe the first time I had access to that. So as I've navigated university and then done agency work post university, I've been introduced to maybe some people and some uh, agencies and roles that typically I wouldn't have access to. So there has been, it's felt quite shaky, to be honest. It's felt a little bit like I felt a bit out of, like a fish out of water in some of these environments, because I feel very working class. Like, I work hard, and my vocabulary is probably not as, or maybe the way I speak isn't polished, and it's not, I've got an accent, I've got a local accent. So I maybe for the first time had felt like um, I've been introduced to spaces that I'm not supposed to be in. And I think when you are, well, I was the first person in my family, on both sides of my family, to have gone to university. So I didn't have anyone else to access information from. I didn't have anyone to kind of show me the way. How do you navigate life after that? So I had been in and out of agency roles, but also just normal work, just normal retail work or call center work. And I felt so much more comfortable going back into those retail and call center jobs because my surroundings are familiar, the people around me are familiar. And I think that's the first time I'd kind of felt a disparity. I felt very different. And that is probably maybe 70% of the reason why I went self-employed, because I didn't like feeling very different or feeling like I didn't belong or any of that. So yeah, I feel like that's how it has shown up for me in business, education, work everywhere. It's kind of something that I'm still adjusting to. Um, and I do subconsciously try to align myself with people that are from backgrounds like me, just I guess for familiarity, for just some normality.
Yeah, there's this underlying kind of this inner conflict that creatives have, especially creatives who don't see themselves in the industry. How do you deal with sometimes being hyper visible and not being hyper visible in these environments, with those situations when you're working in these industries?
I feel like I've put myself in a position where I can choose. So I think subconsciously going the self-employed route means that I definitely had choice. So I wouldn't have to go to offices where I may feel, like I really stand out, or like the Caribbean food that I may bring in is too exotic for the office space and things like that. So I definitely knew that self-employment equaled choice. The level of choice is different because you've still got to earn money, but I could then say yes or no to clients. I could say yes or no to some of the more glitz and glam things like the awards and certain networking spaces. And I would often go to maybe like a new networking group. And if I started to feel some of those icky feelings, or I started to feel uncomfortable, or like there's a bit of elitism here, then I would opt not to go back. So I've definitely felt the freedom of giving myself the choice to be comfortable in where I am and to show up however I am. If I've got a really yum yum accent or whatever else it is, if I want to use uh, my Black British colloquialisms, or I want to dress a certain way, I want to wear big gold hoop earrings because that's like my 90s throwback, because black girl magic, then I can do that, and I don't feel, I don't feel weird or awkward or like I'm drawing unnecessary attention to myself. I also feel like it helps to um, build community without trying. You kind of find yourself looking out for people that look or feel or talk like you, and those people also seek you out. So I have, some really safe spaces that I'm in on, online, some online communities. And everyone is just so different in these spaces, but I feel comfortable. I don't feel like I stand out. I don't feel like I may not belong. I don't feel like I may not be, included in parts of cliques because I make people feel uncomfortable. There's like, I've forgotten the phrase now. It's almost like where you it's unconscious bias, isn't it? Where you kind of align yourself to people that look, feel, and think like you, and it can, I guess, in a really rudimentary way, human behavior. It's uncomfortable to, or it feels unsafe to go to spaces where people are really different from you, because I guess in some kind of caveman way that could equal danger, that could equal death, that could equal starvation or something. So I don't hold that, if people are doing that, if I see people in spaces doing that, I don't feel, I'm not offended, but I just know, okay, well, this space may not be great for me, because I want I want to be able to connect with everyone. I don't want to feel like I have to sit with a clique because the other cliques don't want me there, or they don't feel safe, or whatever it is. So I do actively seek out places where everyone is mingling. I love that. Yeah. Because that's the environment I'm in now. Like, I have black and brown and white neighbors, and, my neighbor that lives across the road from me, um, I have a key to their house, and I'm in and out of their house, and they're, they're not, we look very different. We look completely different. We may not have, sought each other out in another world, but we are really good friends now. And, I've got an older Asian neighbor across the road, and he looks out for, if I'm not home all day, and he's like, kept a space for your car. We look out, it feels like family, but we're very, very different. But those differences aren't then positive, they're not negative differences. And we haven't avoided each other because of that. And I like my life to feel like that in all areas.
Your upbringing and the way your personality is and the things and experiences you've had is a natural fit for you to be looking for these opportunities, be a freelancer, start your own business, etc. But I was always thinking in the back of my mind, not everyone necessarily start their own business. What would you say to those who don't have those opportunities but trying to make their own way and they want to be seen in those environments, look for those opportunities? How can they put those guard rails in place to make sure that they are seen and represented respectively?
Always, always, always stay true to yourself is, I think, the only advice you can't ignore that one. Never small yourself up. Don't small up yourself. Be yourself unapologetically, because chances are you may be inspiring someone else to be the same as well. And I think when you come as you are, people accept you for all of that. And some of those differences that you feel may, I don't know, rub someone up the wrong way. They may actually be the differences that someone chooses you for. There may be, the bit of seasoning or the spice that they would love to have in their own agency or office or whatever it is that you're looking to apply for. Differences are interesting. Uniqueness it's gold, because we're in I feel like we're going to end up in a very colorless world where, everything online feels like it's AI and you don't know if it's real or not. So for you to have your own uniqueness and to, march to the beat of your own drum, I feel like that's what's going to attract people to you moving forward, especially as we move into whatever the world is going to look like creatively. Differences are special. So whenever you are applying for roles, or whenever you are, whatever it is that you're moving into, I think if you dress a certain way or you speak a certain way, don't be afraid of that. That might be the reason that someone's actually drawn to you. If you think of like being an employer and you have sort of 100 applications land on your desk, where do you start? You've got a pile of paper. Where do you start? You've got like 100 new emails. What's the thing how do you start to choose the first one that you want to look at? So if someone has a little sparkle of some uniqueness, I feel like it's going to draw attention to you. So yeah, differences are really valuable.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely think you should just tap into being your whole self because, I know it's scary out there in the world and you might be worried and concerned what other people think of you, but that's their problem. That's their issue. You can't keep on being someone else because it's going to catch up with you in the end. Finding allies as well and finding people support you, like you've got your community outside of work and you've got people within the industry as well. I think that's a good starting point to find those people who are similar to you, have a similar point of view to support you because as creatives, we tend to want to do everything our own.
Yeah, you mentioned something too. You said about it's not pretending to be someone else. I think your mental health too. Like you've got to look after yourself, and that's physically exhausting, isn't it? To put a mask on every day. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it can't be who you're not supposed to be, and you can fight against it, and it will. Yeah, like you say, your mental health will be a toll and on your well-being. Part of the conversation I like to talk about, and it's called Studio Draw. It's a bit of a play on words. It's like the behind the scenes part of your career, that messy drawer that nobody wants to talk about. What is something in your desk or studio drawer that you used to design with that you can't do without?
okay. I have um some fine liner pens. So I've got a pack of random ones, all of the different nib sizes, and I need the thin one for sketches, like so I can scribble and just not kind of make committed marks, just get the stuff out and not worry about it being neat. But then I've got the thicker ones, which you get a bit precious about your outlines or um, more intentional marks. So I've got the thicker ones for that. And I naturally pick up the thicker ones when I'm actually, if I'm note taking or if I'm kind of further on in the creative process and I'm actually like, no, this is a mark that I now want to make. They're not like I'm doing it subconsciously now. So I cannot be without those.
What is what's one creative experiment that completely flopped, but you still weirdly proud of it?
Okay, so back in the university days when, projects were just free and you could just be as crazy as whatever with the brief. Um, I had worked with actually no, not that one because I'm that actually
Skip that one.
yeah, not that one. Oh my goodness, what flopped? I feel like I'm so risk adverse sometimes. I'm just like maybe I kind of abandon stuff halfway through. Like, oh, no, scared, not gonna do it. Not doing that. Absolutely not. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I hate failure. So yeah, maybe have I taken things that far? Really good question. Okay, I think I have one. So I have a free download on my website, and while it gets people downloading, it gets signups. It's a free website checklist where you just download and you just use it as your north star to kind of collect all the things that you need to have in your website. I feel like I didn't complete the design, so it's literally a Google Doc. It's a Google Doc. So in terms of having this beautiful, checklist from this graphic designer, should be stunning, should be branded. It is literally a Google Doc. It's a checklist, a literal checklist using Google Docs. Bullet pointed thing with the checkbox. So I just never went back and designed it. So in terms of design wise, absolutely flopped because I've just abandoned the way it looks. I'm like, it's fine, it works. I kind of lost the creative energy by then to do anything else to it. But it gets sign-ups, it gets I get responses. Sometimes people say, oh, thank you so much for this. It's been really helpful. So I'm always like, oh, if you like it, I love it. So that's great. But the flop wise, I feel a bit bad that it's not something beautiful. It's just very, very rudimentary in the way it
Does the
looks.
job. Sometimes most people don't really worry about the aesthetics, so but it's not it's kind of a flop, but not quite. It's still working.
Yeah, I'm about to
You're
take it
functional.
down. So yeah, it's
Oh,
about to go because I'm like, actually, the cringe is hurting my stomach now, so it's gotta go. It's gotta go.
fair enough. Okay,
Yeah.
I've got a last question for under Studio Draw. What question do you wish others would stop asking creatives, and why?
The pick your brain stuff. So yeah, if you're asking a designer, can I just pick your brain and ask you some questions? I can promise you the answer that you're about to get has taken so much time and energy because I don't know anyone, I don't know a group of people harder on themselves than creatives. Everything is just so overthought and considered, and we've gone through an entire visual journey in our brain spaces. So by the time you get the answer, we've put so much time and energy into it. So if you're creative, if the creative you are asking is a working creative and they do creative stuff for money, please pay them. Please pay them for that pick your brain space because it is actual labor. It is work. So we've got to think about so many things that are just so invisible. It's not a small question. It may feel like a very small question, and we should just know because we are creatives. But any creative project, it literally takes you. Like when I start one, there's kind of like a graph that you go through, like a energy graph. So at the start of this graph, energy's on top of the world. It's right at the top. I'm excited. I'm raring to go. Somewhere in the middle, the energy graph, it's like below zero. It's just like it's in the pits of hell. It's so low because you're physically exhausting yourself creatively every time you're coming up with creative solution. So you try everything that doesn't work to find the thing that does work. So if I had a visual, if I had video recordings of myself through a project, that middle point where that really low point that I'm talking about, I look like a crazy person. I look like the hair's all over the place. I probably haven't brushed my teeth that morning because I've just run down to my computer to just get the thing out. Like I'm not dressing myself properly. I look crazy. I'm not eating properly. Like I've given my entire being to this work. So yeah, it's never a small answer if you're asking a creative a question that requires some creative thought. It's never, yeah, never that small. Never that
You
small.
make it sound like, was it they say that death by a thousand cuts? The amount of people that constantly ask you, "Can I pick your brain?" You have no brain to pick that is
Yeah,
left because you're a crazy woman who haven't had a chance to brush their teeth yet. So yeah, I get it.
absolutely. Yeah, there's no food in this body. There's no food to fuel this thought. So, yeah,
Oh dear, the life of a creative, eh?
right.
Brilliant. That's the end of that segment of Studio Draw. And I've just got one final question for you. What's one piece of advice you give creatives who feel stuck because there's lack of access or networks or privilege out there?
I would go back to your source. So if you have um, studied, if you've done some kind of creative course, university, college, even an online course or something, that's had a facilitator, that's had a person, and that person has been creative enough to be able to deliver that course or that lesson or whatever it was. So they've experienced whatever it is that you're going through. I feel like it's a normal part of the process to get stuck or to feel lost or, like it's hard to get an opportunity or to get yourself into a space. Um, so those people that have delivered something creative to you at some point, they have a lot of answers or they have a lot of insight or some kind of, at least just starting points of what you can do to kind of become unstuck. And some of those things they're kind of unconventional things. They may be like, I don't know, take a train ride somewhere without, somewhere just anywhere. Just go and talk to someone or experience new things or take a walk somewhere that you've never been before just to wake something up in your cognitive brain space. So absolutely speak to the people that have been there already. You definitely have access to those people. You may just not have thought that they were accessible. So ask the question. The worst thing that anyone's going to say is no. Um, I would absolutely do that.
Wonderful. Excellent. Great advice. If anybody wants to reach out to you on social media handles and support your business, how would they do that?
So I am best found on Instagram. That is, I'm just at Hall Creative, all one word. I'm also on LinkedIn. I show up very infrequently because it's quite a busy space, isn't it? But I'm just at Kayleigh hyphen Hall. I think it's LinkedIn /in/ Kayleigh hyphen Hall. And I'm very old, so I'm still on Facebook. So you can, if you find me via Hall Creative again, so it's facebook.com/Hall Creative, and I engage. So if you were to drop a comment on something and ask a question, or if you wanted to, ask something via DMs, I will reach back out to you. So yeah, I'm everywhere.
Brilliant. Of course, I'll put all Kayleigh's information in the description, and yes, reach out to her. And she's got lots of great advice for you to help you and support you. Thank you very much.
I do just want to thank you for having me, Heather. It's been amazing talking to you today.